Hello, this is the Elite Game here with my 5th movie review, which will be a look at not one Shrek film, but all of the Shrek films. So, let's start this little review of the Shrek films with the first one, Shrek 1. A long time ago, DreamWorks broke it big when they made the film we know today as Shrek. A film about an ogre who thought he knew the lot, and he was more lonely than we really noticed till a part of the film. So anyway, just before I go into that, as I was saying, it goes without saying that DreamWorks broke it big when they brought this thing to life in a way CGI had never done before, alongside the brilliant voice talents and vocal talents of Mike Myers as Shrek, Cameron Diaz as Princess Fiona, with Eddie Murphy as Donkey. So the film starts with Shrek pretty much doing his thing, seemingly oblivious to the formality that there's something missing in his life. Something missing that he doesn't seem to have comprehended. He's been alone for so long, that seems to be the norm for him. But the sad truth is, I think he's lonely, but he just doesn't really know how to admit it to himself privately, if only just or by word of mouth. Somewhere in the film we end up meeting with Donkey, who he doesn't really get on very well with Donkey to begin with. He just sees him as more of an annoyance, just a big annoyance which he just cannot stand, and just drives him absolutely crazy. But it's a stepping stone towards their sort of friendship, because although Shrek really has little to no time for Donkey at all, he's talking to him, which is a start, because for all we know he's probably never done this before. Under sufferance, he allows Donkey the right to spend the night in his house for one night. And with that he goes to go off to bed himself and get his head down, which isn't able to happen, because when he wants to do that, he finds the big bad wolf in his bed, sick to death of not being able to get any sleep because of this wayward interruption. He basically picks him up by the scruff of his neck and throws him out. So after this, and it doesn't seem to make much of a difference, that he then finds out that they were told to go there by Lord Farquaad. Shrek then embarks on a journey with Donkey to try and sort the matter out. Anyway, him and Shrek and the apparent lord of this castle have words with Shrek, trying to negotiate, if that's the right word, getting the fairy tale creatures of his land. However, the Lord of Farquaad sends his knights, so to speak, to kill him. But when considering the size of him compared with then, your knights, I can't really see this turning out very well for your guys as a win-win situation, you know what I'm saying? So after a brief skirmish of however long, Shrek and Donkey basically beat the knights senseless, and after pretty much going WWE all over them. He then gives Shrek a quest, telling him that if he embarks on this quest and brings Princess Fiona back, then he'll give him his land back. After a bit of journeying and slight debates along the way, they end up coming to the castle and finding Fiona. It's not long before they're pursued by the dragon, which initially, to some extent, they end up losing when he gets some chains and his collar snagged on the bridge, what was left of the bridge when it broke. Free from that tower which she'd been spending her life there for God knows how long, Fiona thanks her rescuers, Donkey, and well, she doesn't know that Shrek's an ogre at this point, and it's kind of funny, I must say, how she finds out that he's an ogre, because basically he's got a mask on, a helmet. She tells him to take his helmet off. He refuses to do it, to the point when the only way he'll obey the command will be when she actually yells him silly, nearly blasting him out of his waistcoat. And as a result, she reacts very badly when she finds out that he's an ogre and not a human. She goes, well, this isn't right, I'm supposed to be save our prince, so and so, and just says that she's going to stay there. Yeah, like that's going to work. Apparently, she reckoned without Shrek's short temper. He basically relates to her that he isn't going to go back to the kingdom and tell Lord so and so anything, that he's nobody's messenger boy, that he's a delivery boy, and well, I think you can guess the rest. He then brings her there by force to some extent. She starts to get the ump with him, but seems to sort of think, well, if he hasn't hardly even flinched from my blows now, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. So she just seems to sort of, I don't know, take it as it is. Despite getting off on the wrong foot, Shrek and Fiona later develop feelings of love and respect for each other, and we actually begin to see a new side to Shrek. Even from this loving look in his face, you can practically tell that this woman has brought out feelings in him like he's never known before, and he never even knew existed. It's blatantly obvious just from the expression on his face that he's never felt anything like this for a person before. Meanwhile, Donkey comes in to say hello to her during the night and realises a terrible secret, that by night she turns into sort of a creature very similar to Shrek. Donkey obviously wants to tell Shrek what the full deal is, but Fiona won't have none of it, telling him that it's not up to Donkey to tell him, that she'll tell Shrek herself, which she means to do. Unfortunately, there's one problem. During the conversation, she actually ends up saying the following words to Donkey: "How can anybody love this? A hideous, ugly beast. Princess and ugly don't go together." Unfortunately, Shrek, coming back with a bouquet of flowers for her, actually hears this, and thinking that Fiona's talking about him, he drops the flowers and flaming walks away to get the Lord and his men to come and get her. Fiona tries to tell Shrek that she didn't mean him, that she was talking about something else, but he won't listen. And even when Donkey tries to reason with his friend, he's too fuming to listen and sends him away in an angry huff. Sometime before this little image here, Donkey comes back and they end up having a quarrel over the fence, saying that, with Donkey saying that, well, I did half the work, I'll get half the land, if that makes sense. Fair one. Shrek gets the and walks away. Donkey follows him, and they have having another little sort of banter of argument, to the point when Donkey then loses his temper with him, and actually stands up to Shrek, which is probably another thing Shrek really respects in this film, because in addition to Fiona, I don't think anyone had ever done that to him before. Donkey loses his temper, telling Shrek to shut up, and that he insults him, he always does this and that. Shrek seems to look slightly chastened, then shuts himself in a place I'm not even going to name. Donkey continues his rant through the door, then saying, in all fairness, you've got to understand something, this is what friends do, they forgive each other. And anyway, after the row, they end up making up. And then they end up using the dragon to go to the wedding of where that tyrannical lord is trying to get married to Fiona. So it's pretty much the climax of the proceedings. He said he said I do, and he's just waiting for her to say the same thing. She's just got it on the tip of her tongue when, yep, you've guessed it, Shrek and Donkey crash the party. Shrek says that he objects the ceremony. Of course, Fartwell doesn't take to it very nicely. And he takes it even less nicely when he finds out Fiona's secret. When Shrek tells her that the only reason he's doing this is because he can become a king, if he does, because he's not doing this because he loves her. Anyway, so this renegade lord gets irritated and puts a dagger against Fiona's neck, as if that's not intimidating enough, with two of these clown slash knights holding her back. Shrek tries to intervene, but as big as he is, there's two knights for him to fight off. It always looks like curtains for our heroes just when you think their time is up. The dragon that which gave them the lift there breaks through the window and I kid you not, actually eats the lord that was trying to give her so much aggravation. Aggravation. Shrek and Fiona then share a kiss, of which then she thinks that she's going to revert into a human, when that's not the case. She stays sort of like a female ogre, if you will, and he ends up, he sees that she's really upset that she wanted to be a human again, and she turns around to him and goes, well, I just love the remark that she gives him, and he gives him in response, because I just think it's just it adds a transition of realism to it, with the example when she turns around to him and goes, oh, I was supposed to be beautiful. Shrek turns around with a kind smile on his face with the following words, but you are beautiful. Thus they end up sharing another kiss, and the film winds down, cutting to their initial wedding, and thus leaving the door open for the sequel, which will be Shrek 2, which I'll get to next. See you in a bit. Okay, so Shrek 2 directly takes place exactly where the first one left off. It opens with a little menagerie of music going by the name of, and I'm not even making this up, called Accidentally in Love. And pretty much starts off with Shrek and Fiona doing all kinds of things lovers do. Get together, hug and kiss. Fiona get jealous and throw a mermaid half mile off the beach. Yeah, well, it's one way to show the supremacy of the household. Okay, so let's cut to the plot of the film now, shall we? Initially, the plot of the second film is that Fiona's been summoned back home to the land of far, far away by her mother and father, the king and queen, unless you didn't know that. But as we said, when they see Fiona in the flesh, literally, they're pretty much shocked when they see what she's become. A female ogre, no less. And seemingly the only one that they seem to see as a regular occurrence is Donkey. Well, give or take. So when it comes to being summoned home, you know, she does it at one point because she wants to sort of see him again, but Shrek's not really up for it because he's bearing very aggravated thoughts and irritated thoughts toward Fiona's father in particular, because he just doesn't agree with the fact that Fiona's father had her shut in a tower. And obviously there's a lot of arrogant male hostility between the two, as you're about to see in the next division of this part. But in a nutshell, it takes to a point when I actually feel sorry for Shrek all the more, because in the first film it was dealing more on the formality that he was a loner and he just wanted to be like that until they met the best thing that ever happened to him, Fiona. In this one, in addition to the plot itself, he's really making an effort, because he's trying to get, he's really trying, moving heaven and earth, to try and get on with Fiona's parents. It's not really Fiona's mother he has much of a problem with, it's her dad, as I said. And initially, like the first film, all of the original cast here to display their vocal talent. Eddie Murphy as Donkey, Mike Myers again as Shrek, Cameron Diaz as Fiona. At any rate, Shrek and her dad end up having a quarrel with Shrek basically getting irritated with her father, basically saying, well, if you thought anything of your daughter, you wouldn't have had her locked in a tower. Well, initially her father, well, basically reacts it relatively badly. like any parent would. And I guess again, it shows another piece of realism, because I mean, it's well known fact, whatever you like to think of it, whether parents are in the wrong or in the right, 99 out of 100, they don't like being reminded of their shortcomings, whether they're male or female. And it adds a warrant of realism like the first one, but in a totally different nutshell. After a bit of travelling, Shrek and Donkey end up coming across Puss. Oh, pause the claw, so it's going to sting tomorrow. Ooh, that's why you never stand behind a donkey when he's going to kick. Man, that's what. No wonder they call it the daily duties. So, after a little catastrophe at the hands of our feline foe, Puss ends up joining them as an ally for the remainder of the film and the remainder of the trilogy down the line. Although Shrek ends up finding later on a potion which ends up making him later on change to human. Meanwhile, Fiona's having a little testy heart-to-heart with her parents, basically saying that if they've no time at all for Shrek in their daily lives, then she isn't going to bother with being there either. She's just about to leave when all of a sudden a unanimous thing happens. Slightly cliche, but what do you expect with movies of this magnitude? She's about a couple of yards through the door when Bob's uncle, she collapses. As a result, the potions had quite a tantalising effect on Shrek and made him into a human. Meanwhile, he's also scouring the castle, if you like, trying to find Fiona. And where he ends up being trapped in a room, and Prince Charming ends up making Fiona think that he's the real human Shrek. To some extent, I wouldn't say Fiona's totally taken in, but he seems to be calling the bluff so far. But when she later on, another amazing thing happens. Initially, in a nutshell, when Fiona finds out she's been had, she handles it very well. Yeah, won't be dating anyone from after that smack in the mush, will you? No, you won't be dating anyone. Charming's mother goes to shoot Shrek and Fiona, but Fiona's father blocks the blast with his armour, which then deflects and basically makes his mother go poof. Initially, the film finishes on a happy-go musical number, just like the first, and now, right, enough of Shrek 2. Now, 2 more films to go now, peeps. And then I'll give you my final verdict on my take on what I think of Shrek as a whole in the film department. Right, so, and then, okay, now let's look into Shrek 3. Okay, so this is Shrek 3, or Shrek the Third, sorry. In this one, the film starts off with Shrek and Fiona doing things, and above all us living in the palace and doing things like knighting people, christening a boat, like Shrek tries to do, but alas, he doesn't know his own strength. Oh, I've heard of him burnt at the stake, but it's ridiculous. Initially, despite the fact that Fiona's as I said before in the last movie, a female ogre, she seems to set into the way of palace life quite well, where Shrek doesn't. If anything, he finds it very aggravating, annoying. And it's just so laughable to see Shrek in this outfit they're putting him in. I mean, try and look at this outfit he's in with a straight face. Believe me, if you've got as good a sense of humour as me, you'll be lucky if you can manage it at all. Eventually the king dies, but before he dies he tells Shrek that he wants him to rule over the land of Far Far Away in his place. Although Shrek has developed a love and respect for her father as much as anyone, and trying to be the rock in the storm for his wife Fiona at the loss of her father, he doesn't really want to be burdened with this responsibility. So he decides to embark on a quest, if you will, to find someone else to take his place. The main reason why Shrek and Fiona have been asked to take the field where the palace is concerned, literally, is because John Cleese, Fiona's father, the king who was turned into a frog in Shrek 2, is dying. Shrek sailing away on his trip, Fiona's trying to tell him something, that she's pregnant, that he's going to be a father. In this film, obviously, it's another film that tests Shrek but in a different method. It tests him not just in trying to get someone else to take his place in governing, or basically being large and in charge of the land of Far Far Away, but also governs on and revolves around, wouldn't say a paranoia, I wouldn't say a fear, more like a more of a little niggle. A niggle that he's going to be a full-time father, meaning that obviously that's a lovely thing in most lives for people who really love their children, but then obviously as Shrek's new to this, as some parents are in the real world, he has a little niggle of doubt to what it would be like to be a parent, and he even ends up having these little daydreams or nightmares, if you will, where the baby just is trying to make happy, just ends up it's making an infinite amount of noise and din to the point where he can't stand it. And I think between this and the next movie on my review list, this will be, I'm not even kidding, probably after this and the one after this review would probably be two of the highest grossing films in the trilogy, of the whole Shrek trilogy, where they really test his patience beyond resolve. And the fact comes when at the end of the day he actually realises there is more to life than being grumpy. It's called being a parent, which is no means an easy thing. But in the real world today, I guarantee, whatever age, young age you end up taking significant responsibility for a son, a daughter, even having to raise your youngest sister. You know, it's a reward worth doing. I think that's something we can all agree with. Eventually Shrek ends up finding the guy who Fiona's father wouldn't have asked to be king of Far Far Away, with a 10-foot barge pole, and they end up departing. Meanwhile, Shrek comes back from his quest to find Prince Charming, has come back for revenge and has taken Fiona and the others by force. And Charming will stop at nothing to level the score out of idle frustration and fury, and out of jealousy for the formality above all else that Shrek conned him out of saving the woman that technically he was supposed to save, yet never got round to. Despite the fact that Charming has Shrek at his mercy, so to speak, he's not afraid to still go and wind him up or play comedian. I mean, what a good remark was that he just said to him, you know, can you kill me first and then sing? That's one way to beat your nemesis, Shrek. You can't beat them, outstage them. Well, not quite the fire brigade, but gets the job done. It's not long before the cavalry comes in and they're about to literally let Charming and his boys have it. Just when you think the battle of the century is going to kick off, the new guy that Shrek basically ends up bringing back to be the leader of Far Far Away basically implies, you know, who says we're to settle things this way? Who says we're to settle this via violence? Charming doesn't particularly care, but his allies seem more at ease to listen to this adequate mishmash of negotiations / debate. They're not realising that just because they're villains doesn't mean to say they have to be one. The thing that matters most at the end of the day is who they are, and that when bad things happen, we have a choice to deal with it in our own way. The only person standing in the way is us, or in this case, them. So, just before the ending credits kick off, Shrek takes his wrath out on the double-dealing runt Charming. Ooh. Ooh. That tower really let him have it. And the guy that Shrek brought back ends up being the new leader of Far Far Away. This film ends on a lovely musical note with little montages of the happy father, Shrek, his wife Fiona, and Donkey sort of taking it in turns to babysit the children. Oh, and not forgetting Puss. He gets a part in it too, which I think's went by. Yeah, just amazing. The occasional joy that the jovial sense that being a parent can occasionally bring to people. Oops, sorry, I don't think that's your baby there, Shrek. Whoops. Yep, as the old saying goes, today's children and tomorrow's future. But then it can be a bit fatiguing being a parent with this film. Never take on real life. Right, peeps, so that was Shrek 3. Now you're more than welcome to join me for Shrek 4, Forever After. Okay guys, this is Shrek Forever After, or Shrek 4 for short, the final film in the Shrek trilogy. Yep. I'm nearing the finish line for this little trilogy review. So basically, this film pretty much starts off with the final film pretty much starts off with Shrek making a wish that this day would last forever. As a result, it does to some extent, and ends up driving him mad beyond comprehension, beyond imagination. And deja vu just carries on again and again and again and again. Initially, it ends up taking its toll on him too much, and Shrek ends up putting his fist through one of his son's birthday cake on their birthday. Yep. Shrek's in the doghouse this time, and there's no going back. So it would seem. Fiona follows him out and tries to reason with him, but Shrek's just too mad to listen. The sad truth is, he's been married for so long, well, whatever's long, in his capacity, that he's forgotten the sheer bliss of what it is to have that inevitable responsibility. The responsibility of being a parent and a husband at the same time. And he's actually so sick and tired of, well, having this responsibility that he should answer to every bit as much as Fiona. That he's basically taken it for granted. And in his anger, he basically goes so far beyond words. He basically implies that he would have been a happier fairy tale creature if he'd never bothered saving Fiona in the first place. While going off to do some thinking and mulling things over, he ends up bumping into the villain of this film, of which at this point of the film he doesn't know is the villain, because if any of you have read the books before, you'll know how no one should ever trust Rumpelstiltskin. Anyway, he basically ends up tricking Shrek into giving away or signing away a day of his life. But what Rumpelstiltskin's severely neglected to tell him is that he hasn't just signed away one day of his life. He's given him more than a day. He's given him the date he was born, which means that he was never born at all, which means that he never rescued Fiona, which also means that everyone's totally petrified of him, like they were in the first film. And obviously he's oblivious to this to begin with, because he's also drawn to this little shenanigans into Shrek, so to speak, saying that whenever you want this happy hour, so to speak, to end, it'll end whenever you want it to. But that's not the case. There's not long coming before he finds us out the hard way. Eventually Shrek ends up being taken captive by a Stiltskin, who basically informs him to fall SP. But he didn't just give him one day, he actually gave him the whole days of his life, including the day he was born. And that when this day ends, so will Shrek's life. Basically, Stiltskin's doing this to get back at Shrek because, like Charming and everyone else before, he holds a grudge against Shrek, but he holds quite a different grudge. Sometime before Shrek eventually went after Fiona in the first film, Stiltskin was going to was when the hairs reached, so to speak, of making the king and queen, her parents, sign over their kingdom as collateral for him to get her out of a sticky situation or something. And when that was exactly going to happen, it was too little too late. Shrek had got her out, the king had torn up his papers, and that was that. So obviously Stiltskin wanted revenge, and he did this by basically telling him that basically literally taking away Shrek's life, well, within reason. Now it's a race against time. Shrek has to work out how to get his life back, as opposed to living it on borrowed time in this parallel version of his world, and at the same time try and get back the family that he took for granted, when deep underneath he loves them to bits, and he's knowing that now more than ever. Eventually ends up finding Fiona, or this world's take of Fiona. She doesn't recognise him, and ends up training him, or at least trying to train him for a big battle. They seem to be sort of laughing and joking in between the little training session, but other than that, it's as far as it goes. She doesn't recognise him as her significant other, her husband. She just sees him as an ally to bring this battle to a screeching halt. In the end, Stiltskin is defeated. The Fiona of this parallel world, if you like, finally remembers Shrek. And just when you think Shrek's number is up for good, Forever After ends up coming full circle, right from the word go. And he ends up not just getting his life back, but gaining something more. The greatest thing of all, the greatest knowledge of all. That, knowing full well that he has offspring as has his wife. There's children that he's got children that love him to bits for who he is. Nothing will ever change that. It's moments like this that make this film really go the distance, and I'm not talking about one film. I'm talking about all of them as an appropriate quandary, their own take on a traditional little trilogy, only in the Shrek sense. The film basically comes to a close, and the final chapter of Shrek's trilogy movie Alive comes to a complete close, and the final page soon closes on a love and embrace which Shrek gives to his wife. Been kindly reminded just by that and seeing his 3 children that you know, some things in life we should never take for granted. We all have bad days, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to be the best we can be. So in other words, with this film, he hasn't just come full circle. Shrek's gone from being a loner to getting used and really trying to get to know parents better, to talk to stepping into the shoes and rank of parent, to actually realising that you had to accept your responsibilities at some time in life, and he's done that. He's made the total evolution. Beyond words, beyond recognition. Now, how to rate this trilogy as a whole? Well, I'll give this trilogy a 10 out of 10 because they all have something new to add to the table in their own way, and they all have quite a unanimous status quo of morals down the line. You know, as the old saying goes, a film without an appropriate moral isn't worth the paper it's printed on. So that'll be my final words on the trilogy by DreamWorks, which was the Shrek trilogy. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.